BJ O'Neill here with Business Coach Mastery. Let me ask you this question. How's your thinking? Do you think about what you think about? Are you intentional about what you think about? Are you aware of what you think about? More importantly, did you know that what you think drives your behavior? What you think drives your actions? What you think is the bedrock of who and what you become. Just think about that, literally. When you look in the Bible, in Paul, it's an amazing story. Here he's had this incredible transformation, right? Where he's been an evil person, he's been mean, he's just like the worst. He goes through this transformation, he goes from Saul to Paul, and he ends up being the catalyst. He ends up being the pinnacle, key, linchpin of faith, encouraging the early church, even when it cost him everything. Most of the time as he was encouraging the church on how to think. He was in prison. He didn't have anything. But that was his role. But when we take a peek at that, and specifically, if you look at 2 Corinthians 10:5, probably one of my favorite verses, and one that over the last many years now, just continuing to refine to help understand this whole thought about thinking. And where does this play into building businesses? Where does this play into building business coaching practices? I'm going to tell you that. But if you've never really kind of read and broke down and just kind of wrestled with 2 Corinthians 10:5, and more specifically, 2 Corinthians 10:3-5, I want to encourage you to do that today. Here's why. As we begin to go and you have a dream, you have an idea, you want to help people, you want to help businesses grow, you want to help to drive profitability, because you understand when those businesses have more profit, when they have more revenue, they have more opportunities to serve the community, to hire the right people, to keep the right team members for a long time, to not just have a business, but to actually own it rather than the business owning them. When businesses have more meat on the bone, they have more opportunity to serve, to give back into their communities, churches, ministries, and other places where God's calling them to give. But very difficult to do that when they don't have enough profit. So perhaps you're in a position where that's a driver for you, like bringing purpose and helping others. You have a strong conviction for you in your life that you would love to do that. Now, I don't know where you are, if you've been thinking about building a business coaching practice, maybe you've started, you've been doing it, but starting anything requires work. Starting anything requires effort. So the few things I want you to consider based upon the premise of taking your thoughts captive. And by the way, you can't do it on your own. We have to rely upon God and His strength, because it's been proven at this point that relying upon the self isn't going to get it done. We need His help. But we also have some work to do our own. The first is the recognition. So key number one, I want you to really begin to pay attention to your thoughts. And I will tell you, at least in my experience, in the beginning, this is a little challenging. Why? That it's been said that we have about 30,000 thoughts a day. Many of them are subconscious, which that's the concern. Why? Well, let's put it into practical terms. You want to build a business coaching practice. You get started. There's a lot to think through. What are the strategies I'm going to do to interact with the business community? What if it doesn't go well? What if people don't really understand what I do? What if I'm not accepted? All these different things that we fight through, we work through. But if we begin to believe some of those thoughts that are actually lies, but if we begin to believe them as truth, it sabotages our actions. Oftentimes, it just causes us to quit or brings a significant slowness. It really slows the pace down, and that just drags, and it just makes the process hard. But when we begin to take those thoughts captive and we understand them, but hold on, that's not true. That's a lie, right? And we frame that. We'll talk about that later in a moment. But the first thing is we have to start to recognize them. So I want to just encourage you to catch yourself. An easy way to look at that is you're driving down the road. Think about all the different things that you're thinking of. Are you aware of what you're actually thinking? Are you paying attention to, oftentimes, the negative things that we're thinking that we don't even realize is because it's been happening for so long? Ever since the apple was bitten, right? We were born into sin, and that sin is just that byproduct of control over our lives unless we control it. So we have choices. We let our thoughts just run rampant, and what that'll do is that'll just have causality of your actions, or we begin to control them. I'm not going to fib to you. It's work. It's hard work. So number one is paying attention to your thoughts. The second thing is to begin to write them down. Now, I know that that may sound a little weird to you. And by the way, there's some self-relevance when you go through this process, especially when you begin to recognize a same thought and or theme over and over. But what will happen when you begin to write those down? And again, I'm going to bring all this up in a bow in a moment and give you just practical things to consider as it relates to building a business coaching practice where you're going to bring value and transformation to business owners, right? So we're paying attention to our thoughts. Now we're beginning to write them down, all right? And literally write them down. Write them down, and you're going to start to see a pattern. You're going to start to see some emerging things going to happen that may shock you, actually. And they're going to start to connect with why some of those things are causing you pause on moving forward. It's not just that you're just not making a decision. It's not that you don't know what to do. Your thoughts are framing all of this up, and that's what's making it challenging or not. So we're paying attention, we're writing it down, and the third thing for today is we begin to pray that God to reframe that thought. So if the thought is, you know what, I've got imposter syndrome, why would anyone want to listen to me? Probably a few of you that are watching this probably have felt that a time or two. Maybe you're feeling that right now, right? And that is causing you to go, how could this possibly even work when no one knows who I am, when I've not been doing this for a very long time, or anything in that realm that just causes this, I'm not worthy. And here's the cool thing, little hack. We couldn't do this a couple of years ago. You can go to ChatGPT or your favorite AI tool, and you can simply say, hey, I have this negative thought that it's a reoccurring thing that I've just been stuck on for quite some time. Here's that thought. I want you to reframe this into what's called a asset thinking. So what we're doing is we're taking liability thinking and moving over to asset thinking. So we want to take that negative thought and we want to turn it into a positive thought. And then, little bonus tip, we want to begin to state that positive thought daily, multiple times a day. You know what I mean? And whatever that positive thought, and you might work through that. And so we're taking this negative thing and now we're going to turn it into a positive thing, right? And then we begin to repeat it and repeat it. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to end up building new, what we call declarations of truth. And as you begin to condition your mind and just that muscle memory, you begin to believe it. And what will happen is that through prayer, through just process, your actions will start to change. This isn't just about forming great habits. This isn't just about great actions. Yes, those are important. Yes, those are real. But bigger than that, what sabotages habits all day long is your thinking. And oftentimes, it's stinking thinking. Hope that means something to you today. Work on it. It might be uncomfortable in the beginning. Let it. It's okay. It doesn't have to feel great. This is just for you, just your personal time. Pay attention to your thoughts. Write them down. Frame them from a negative thought to a positive thought. Use AI tools. You don't have to hardly think about it anymore. It'll help you get there. We'll put it that way. And then you can work through the wording and then begin to retell yourself that positive statement that will change your direction and your actions. All right. Until next time, take care.